Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. And now, the champion, fighting out of Los Angeles, California. This man is a movie snob with a background in fighting and a lifelong addiction to all things superhero related. Presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed host of the show, the Iron Coob.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. This is episode number 121 of the Iron Coob Fights Movies. This episode is available on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and hosted by SoundCloud. We now have a Facebook page for the podcast you can follow for updates, as well as my 1/6 scale figure reviews. This week, the team reviews The Spy, followed by movie, television, and video game news. I'm Keo, your host. With me on the show today are my co-hosts, Emerson.
Hey, what's going on?
And Everett.
Hey, what's up?
All right, I'm going to explain our rating system. On this show, we give the titles we've watched with a rating of win, draw, or loss. A win is a title that we would highly recommend, while a draw is a title we didn't love but recognize others may appreciate. A loss means we do not recommend the title. If you have not seen the review of the week and would like to avoid spoilers, check the show notes for the timestamp so you can still hear our news sections. All right. So, I tried to look up a synopsis for this, but there kind of isn't one because it's a miniseries. But it's based on the life of Eli Cohen, a Mossad agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, first thing is, why is Netflix making so many Mossad movies?
It's a little weird, isn't it? Remember how I said on Red Sea, like, I wonder who paid for this?
Yeah.
There does seem to be a large amount of, like, Israel Mossad-focused productions lately.
Yeah,
Like-
it is kind of strange.
Do you think that they have a large
So
Israeli...
I think there's two options here. I think option one is someone somewhere, because you know how a lot of times someone starts making a movie and all the other studios hear about it, so they make their own version to compete. I guess a notable example would be White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen. It just seems odd how like things all get made at the same time. So I think option one is that someone somewhere started making a Mossad thriller, a bunch of other studios heard about it and were like, oh, we can make a variation of this. Or two, there is like some production company that's greenlighting Mossad things or pro-Israel things, semi-pro-Israel things.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting how they're all coming out in short sequence.
All right. Well, Everett, why don't you give your rating?
All right. I'm going to give this a win. Emerson, I'd just like to give you a thank you because I thank you for recommending this because this is an amazing show in my opinion. I think from reading from my notes, I think this show does almost perfectly what the other Netflix shows we've watched only try to do, which it gives you a nice slow burn, good suspense, good relationship building, nice character development, and great production quality and acting, all within the span of 6 episodes. And most of these episodes are less than an hour long or just slightly over. I really enjoyed watching it, and I've heard the story of Eli Cohen a bunch of times. I learned about him in Hebrew school when I was younger, and you know it's interesting to watch this on screen and see. And obviously, a lot of it I'm sure has been hyped up for drama and stuff like that. But it's interesting to see a story like this unfold, especially when you know what's going to happen and wondering how they're going to do it and how they're going to handle like sort of a sensitive topic. So I thought it was amazingly made. So yeah, I'm going to give this a really high win.
So this is a very ignorant question, but what was... Okay, well, let's back up.
I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be funny.
No. So this is about a guy who gets recruited into the Mossad, and then he goes to Syria and he becomes a spy, right?
Essentially.
And then it's about like his escapades as a spy and how it ends. So what is Israel? When did they go to war with Syria?
So
I'm not
they're
familiar with
they're
that.
3 times. So the first is the Independence Wars that was fought in 1949. This is the war where Israel was like, "We're here now, deal with it." The second war was the 6-Day War, which is the war that is mentioned at the end of this series. This was in the 60s when Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan because they detected that those countries were readying to launch an attack on Israel. It was the most successful war in Israel's history. They actually conquered the entire Sinai Peninsula and destroyed the Egyptian and Syrian air forces in the first day. Like, they caught their entire air forces on the ground and destroyed everything. The third war was the Yom Kippur War. That was in the 70s, I think 1973. And during the Yom Kippur War, basically, Israel got ambushed by Syria and Egypt with some support from Jordan and Iraq, and almost got defeated during the Yom Kippur War. So those are the 3 major wars. And then there's an Israeli invasion of Lebanon that happened in the early 2000s. There's an Israeli intervention in Syria.
What's the beef between them and Syria?
So specifically with Syria, Syria has been part of the Arab coalition that tries to drive Israel out. According to the Syrians, it's because they're heretics. The reality is it's sort of like power politics. Syria controlled an area that was strategically valuable known as the Golan Heights. There were on and off skirmishes with Syria from 1949 onward. After the 6-Day War, Israel seized control of the Golan Heights because it's strategically relevant, and ever since then, Israel has occupied the Golan Heights, which gives them this strategic upper hand, so they fought around that area a lot.
All right, and so when does this story take place? In the 60s?
This, I think, is 61, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Before
what
the
was the
6 Day
situation then?
It was pretty much very similar to like how it could be described today, with a lot of tension, except Israel today is widely considered to be like more powerful, I'd argue, than a nation like Syria or Egypt. But back in the 60s and through most of the 70s, the Arab countries were being supported by the Soviet Union, and they were actually very powerful, and like no one was entirely sure if Israel was going to be defeated in a war or not. So no one was really sure who was dominant. Israel had a qualitative edge, but they were outnumbered, and the qualitative edge was thinning because of Soviet support. Also, Israel didn't have nukes yet, so that wasn't really in the equation.
Okay.
So imagine it basically being as like no one was completely certain who was going to win in a fight between them. Like, Israel probably was better, but it wasn't guaranteed.
Right. Okay, so what's your rating for this show?
So I give the show a win. I thought Sacha Baron Cohen did an amazing job as a drama actor. I think he did really well. I do like the slow burn, like Everett mentioned. They try to do less of this like nonsense action, and it's more about telling the story and like seeing what he does and the effects on him. As I was watching the show, I kept looking up certain things. There are certain characters who appear at certain events, and I was like, did this really happen? And a lot of them did happen, although as far as I can tell, there are some things that haven't been publicly disclosed, or like there's some questionable information regarding them, which I'll get to. But it's an absolute win for me. I really enjoyed it, and for me, the opening of the show, I thought I knew what was going to happen at the end, and I was just waiting for it. But the ending kind of surprised me, and I was like, damn. So absolute win for me. I'm so happy that I was able to watch it.
Yeah, I actually looked up the guy, I want to say like after the second episode. And so I kind of knew what was going to happen at that point, which I wouldn't say ruined the show for me. In fact, it sort of gave me more of a purpose for it. It gave the show more of a purpose. But yeah, I'm not as hot on this as you guys. I'm gonna give it a win, but I don't know. I thought, like, if I'm gonna say Yeah, it is a slow burn, but I'm gonna say that the first two episodes are a little too slow. And it's not that they don't have action. It's just it's confusing for me because like I didn't want to see this. This was your recommendation, Emerson. You picked this, and so I just put it on, and I didn't even really look at it what it was other than Sacha Baron Cohen, and I assumed that it was going to be like half comedy, half drama or something, and I don't know, like there's not a lot of context. So if you know who this guy is, like Ev, you said you knew him. If you knew who he was, then when he gets recruited, that's like a big thing to you. But I'm looking at this, and I told you guys, maybe I didn't, but I watched Munich not too long ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to this. And not in a bad way, but I'm just saying like, oh, this. I mean, I don't know if they actually were like this, or like I apologize, but like the tropey shit of like, let's send him to the wrong address, like stuff like that. There's a lot of that in Munich as well. Like the same sort of, he's a normal guy working a normal job. Suddenly, like someone from the shadows comes out and offers him a position. Choose right now, or you're out. And he's like, oh, I don't want to do it, but I guess I will. And then it's like, oh, the wife is pregnant. And, oh, the wife is now alone at home. And, oh, the wife had the baby, but the dad doesn't see him. Like, it was a lot of the same notes. So that may have also lessened my enjoyment of the series. I will say, so, like, the first two, I just didn't know where it was going. I'm like, first of all, I've seen this. And second of all, is this, like... I actually thought it might be one of those like pro-Israel things, which I'm not saying it's not pro-Israel, but it almost seemed like propaganda. Like, is this about him like beating the fuck out of the Syrians? Because I don't really care, you know. Like I'm not Israeli, and you know, because there's a lot of nationalism with Israelis, and so that alone could be enough of a reason to watch the show. But for me, it's not. Like, I want to see a good story. So it's, okay, he's in the Mossad. And then I couldn't even tell you what happens in the second episode. But it was only after that when I looked up who he was that I'm like, okay, this is going somewhere. So then I was more invested in it.
So I'd actually agree with what you said. I understand what you're talking about with the tropes. But
do you want to go into spoilers?
Yeah, I'd like to, actually.
Yeah, let's go into spoilers.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, that I liked is that, you know, he did seem fairly eager to work for the Mossad, which I think was interesting because I like that idea where he's like, I want to serve my country, and then later he's like, with his children being born, I mean, he was away, but it is tropey. But for me, what I liked is that in his training, he wasn't doing any crazy nonsense. Like, okay, he was learning to like kind of see if people follow him, but he fails at that. And he is able to learn how to do Morse code. For me, that is interesting because, okay, this is how someone realistically might be trained instead of, hey, look at Chris Evans do 500 pull-ups. Like, that's not what I want to see. I'm much more interested in how does an average guy, and like, what does he do?
What was that training montage, though? Because it didn't seem... Like, I'm not sure what I was supposed to get out of that.
They were teaching him... the idea is to show that he's eager and kind of knows what he's doing. But for me, at least, what it showed is that it's realistic. All they were teaching him was you need to memorize certain individuals and, like, certain types of, like, vehicles and stuff so you can report back accurately what you see. Then it was also, let's make sure you can do Morse code so you can get the information to us. And then, hey, here's some spycraft about identifying if you're being followed. Which, the one time that really comes into place, he fails at it. So, I liked that because it was a very, in my opinion, realistic approach of how you would take someone in a couple months and turn them into a spy. Because a spy is not an action hero running around, jumping off buildings, gunning people down. A spy is... I talk to people, I figure things out, and I tell another guy.
Yeah, that was something I was going to sort of bring up, is that I actually liked seeing that in this, because I know like one of the purposes of watching this was to compare it to the Deep Sea Diving Resort, or the Red Sea Diving Resort. And I feel like that movie would have been so much better if they followed some of the things they did in this movie.
Well, that movie was trying to be like the Avengers or some shit. That movie sucked.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed seeing the espionage side of an infiltration instead of like the military-esque part that they did in that. Like, there's a lot of shooting and action scenes in that, but in this, like, it doesn't happen very often or at all.
I mean, have you guys seen Munich?
No, it's on my list though.
I mean, I just watched it, but like maybe down the line we can watch that again because that also has a lot of the espionage, and I'm curious to see. Like, I mean, we kind of knew going in that it was going to be better than Red Sea Diving Resort, but I think that would be one we could compare a little better. And maybe I could watch it again. I don't know. But that was a good movie. It's a long one. I'll say that. But what about his workout montage? Are we supposed to think that he's like physically fit and
I
a fighter
didn't even
now?
take it so much. No, because when he tries to fight, the only time it happens, and I'm so happy there's only one scene of him trying to fight.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, that's realistic. I just take that as like, they're making sure he can do some very basic things. And as I said, like, in the second episode, and I agree with you that it gets better in the third and fourth. That's when it really hit its stride for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't look it up. I looked it up after. But basically,
But what was hooking you in then?
What was hooking me in was I like history, and so I'm watching this guy and I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And as I said, in that first episode, I really enjoyed the subtlety of how they trained him to be a spy. So I was like, okay, they understand that it doesn't seem like it was going to be an action movie or an action show. So if they're not going to do that, there's going to be something. And in the second episode where he goes to Buenos Aires and he's like slowly intimating himself into the Syrian community there, I'm like, okay, yeah. I started to see how it was going to be and how he was like, okay, he's going to work his way up somehow. How's this going to happen? And so then once I hit the third episode and he got to Syria, that was super interesting because I also like to watch how he would identify someone and he'd try to get close to them and he'd use his money and he'd fail too. That was the other thing. Like in the third episode when he's talking to the sheikh and he like messes up by saying the wrong things a few times, but he like keeps trying and he's able to get through it. I enjoy that because that adds a sense of realism.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then once he got to Syria, I especially... So here's the thing. When they kept mentioning the Ba'ath Party, okay? So I know that the Ba'ath Party took control of Syria. I knew that already. I also realized, okay, the Ba'ath Party's not in power yet, so at some point the Ba'ath are going to take power. I knew the Ba'ath Party was in power during the Yom Kippur War, which I figured out took place after, or during the 6 Days War, which took place after this. So I'm starting to think to myself, okay, he's mentioning the Ba'ath, like, is he going to see this transition? And that for me, in the fourth and fifth episodes, when he inserts himself into the current Syrian government, he befriends the high-ranking generals, he befriends, and he's like this rich, like, government-aligned guy. He makes his business, and then he participates in the overthrow. I thought that was awesome. And then when I saw, like, oh my god, he's going to become the Minister of Defense, like, he's figuring all this stuff out, I just thought that was crazy. Can you imagine a spy becoming, like, Secretary of Defense of the United States? That'd be insane.
Yeah.
That'd be absolutely insane. And then another thing, so when he was planting the trees in the Golan Heights, I knew about that already because I had read about that before. But I didn't know it was Ela Cohen. I just had read about a spy caused them to plant trees, and I was like, that's brilliant. I also really liked seeing how he would get the information back through his import-export business, newspaper clippings, pictures of people, reports on what military equipment was where, these type of things. I just thought that was very cool. And the whole time, you have these like power struggles going on. The Sudani is like trying to find him. We get a great cameo from Osama bin Laden, which was just hilarious. I thought that was so funny.
Cameo?
So he's talking to bin Laden's father, who I looked this up after. He really did own a massive construction company that did work in Syria. And so he's talking to Bin Laden's father, and then a child runs up, and Bin Laden's father goes, "Osama, I told you to wait downstairs," and the kid runs away. I thought that was hilarious. A cameo from Bin Laden. It's like the terrorism cinematic universe.
Yeah,
they made a lot of references to a lot of famous figures from the past. Like they name dropped
Hussein.
Adolf Eichmann at one point. They
Yeah,
were talking. They
Eichmann,
talked about
that was interesting.
they talked about Joseph, not Stalin. What was his name?
Goebbels?
Saddam Hussein. That they talked about him for a second.
Yeah, they talk about Saddam.
Joseph Saddam Hussein.
I thought
they
I'm like
mentioned-
Joseph Stalin. That's not right.
They mentioned Saddam in Iraq.
Yeah.
I liked all that stuff. And the other thing is, so throughout the show, they're building up to what are the Syrians doing? They're building something. And I was like, okay, it's
They
going
were
to
going
be...
to poison the water? Is that it?
No, it's much more interesting and much more realistic once I looked it up. Originally, I was like, okay, it's clearly going to be nukes. That's what anyone ever builds. And I was kind of annoyed by that because I was like, okay, he's going to figure it out and they're going to have to bomb it. They were going to dam the rivers that fed that lake, which is
Right.
where Israel gets most of its water.
Right.
Damming the rivers, the lake dries up. And I was like, oh shit. And that's a real thing. There was a real diversion project being undertaken. And so I was like, that's crazy because that's something that's much more realistic and much more damaging when you think about it than, they have nukes.
Yeah. So that was it? They were just going to cause a drought or something?
That was their big plan, but he stops that in episode 5. And then, see, that's the thing. After that, the show should end. But instead what happens is we start to see that his own loneliness starts to get the better of him because, he's sending messages when he doesn't need to, but they're important information. And when the Russians arrive and they're tracking, I just think that's awesome how if he had just stopped in the show, if he had just stopped transmitting, maybe he wouldn't have gotten caught. But he keeps transmitting, and then when they take his apartment and he's trying to go to kill himself, and then, as I said, I hadn't looked him up yet. I'd looked up, like, okay, is Osama bin Laden's dad really this construction mogul? Is the diversion project real? But I hadn't looked him up. So at the end, because the start of the show, the very first scene is you see him in prison, and you see them announce on the radio that the Zionist spy, Eli Cohen, has been captured. So I'm like, okay, what's going to happen is, and they show little flashes of his wife trying to, like, do something. So I'm like, okay, what's clearly going to happen is at the very last second, they're going to make some deal, and he's going to go home. And so I'm, like, watching, and I'm like, okay, he's gotten arrested, he's tortured any second. And then they lead him out to the gallows, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be this stupid, dramatic thing. They're going to just stop it. And then he's on the gallows. And I'm like, okay, anytime now. And then he's dead. And then afterwards, you get the little historical, like, whatever. And I was like, that's awesome. In my opinion, the show would have been even greatly improved if they just ended it there instead of the weird, like, start over faction.
Yeah,
thing.
that scene should not have been there.
No, it cheapens the whole thing.
Yeah. And he's like, sent him to the wrong address again.
Yeah. What if the guy's just kind of an idiot and he keeps sending him to the wrong address and doesn't want to admit that he's like fucking up? But what I think what's interesting about the show is it's not entirely pro-Israel. It's got a pro-Israel slant for sure, but they show some of the fact that he's treated like a second-hand citizen when he's back in Israel. He's used by the Israeli government a decent amount.
Yeah.
And, this idea that they're just like, hey, we need brown people to come do work for us.
Right.
Honestly, it was that I found that really impressive about the making of this show and the way the actors portrayed their roles is that in the parts where he's making relationships in Syria, I actually found myself sort of liking the people that he was with. Like, they were very nice people to him. Like, they weren't, like, inherently evil, like, haha, we're going to blow up people. Like, they all seemed like normal people. Like, normal conversations, going to parties and public gatherings and stuff like that. And, like, honestly, it's
Yeah, but
amazing
come on, Everett.
that
They were Syrians.
No, I mean, like, it's... I like... You just made me... I lost my train of thought. But,
Good work, dude.
there's another thing I was going to bring up, actually, is one of the things I found kind of made this show a little bit weaker, in my opinion, were some of the side plots that they decided to go with. Like, what was up with his handler spending that much time with his wife? I didn't really like that much. Like,
It seemed like he was actually, like, it seemed like at some point that he was actually just feeling bad for her.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a little weird though, because I agree with what Everett's saying. Because like there seemed to be a will they, won't they being set up to like have us follow that, and like as you said, Key, I think it ended up just being no. He just feels bad and he wants to help her out, but the thing is, like, I don't know, I wasn't as interested in that part.
Well, what else are you gonna do?
What do you mean? Like, what
Like,
other things can you show?
To fill
I
the
mean,
time.
I liked seeing like how the government was reacting, and you have the internal struggles where like the Mossad's like, we need to bring him home. Other people are like, no, we need to send him away.
I think were trying to show you that he's like losing his home life.
Which is true, yeah. But I feel like I got enough of that from him. Like what I liked a lot was when he comes back and his two daughters are there, and one of them says he looks like Daddy. Like I think that was an effective moment, because it's like he has lost his life.
I mean, I saw it in Munich already. Like, not that exact moment, but that was a thing where I'm like, part of it I couldn't buy it because it was so beat for what I had already seen that it cheapened it a bit. And I don't know, I'm like, so was that real in the Munich movie, or is it real now, or is this just how it is for everybody?
And see, that's interesting because I haven't seen the Munich movie, but if I'm hoping to watch it soon. But that makes me wonder. In fact, I'll look it up right now. Who were the production companies on both movies, or the movie and the TV show?
I have no idea. I'll look up Munich.
But if it's the same production company, then it's questionable, because it's like, is this just a template?
Yeah, I guess that is kind of odd.
Produced by Steven Spielberg. Production company Universal.
Okay, Universal. I'm looking for something smaller.
DreamWorks, Amblin, the Kennedy Marshall Company, and Alliance Atlantis.
Is that for Munich?
Yeah.
It says The Spy was done by Legend Films.
Yeah, Legende and Canal Plus and Netflix.
I think. See, the reason I think that it's so close to it is because you're hitting the meat and bones of writing a film like this, where a guy is far from home, fighting for his country, but he leaves his family behind, and you're going to hit a lot of the same exact notes if you want to pull at the same strings that you're trying to pull at. Like, I feel bad for the wife. I feel bad for the guy who's away from his family. His family is starting to forget him and moving on without him, and you're going to do a lot of the same stuff. I mean, literally, when she got pregnant, I was like, it's the same goddamn movie. But I was okay because I saw the ending and I knew that, okay, this one was at least real. I mean, the other one was real too, but it was more classified, so we don't really know. I actually thought it might be based on the same guy, but then I saw that the years were different, so. Because at first I wasn't sure. But it's not really a complaint on this. It's just like, if there was a third movie like this, like if just a completely unrelated film that was about another Mossad agent going undercover, and he has a wife at home and she's pregnant, like I don't think I want to watch it. I think I'm done with that concept.
Well, because Kie, so you gave it a win, but you have said like you're like, I wasn't as enthralled as we were. So did you like it? Because it sounds like you were like, and then you got into it. But
well, yeah, cool. Well, we're talking spoilers. So I got into it when I knew that he was going to die.
And why did that do that for you?
Well, I just like that. I like it when the character dies because of their own actions. Like, I just think that's a cool concept. So knowing that he was going to get caught and seeing how much he had already gotten away with, I was like, okay, I'm hanging on for the moment that like it all unravels. And surprisingly, I think they did a decent job of setting it up. He's telegraphing at all hours, and they catch it nearly once, and then it seemed like in the show the second time he did it, when they were onto him, they got him.
Well, remember when the security guy notices that the TV's fuzzy at the soccer match? Basically, what he puts together, because that guy says every time at this time of night in the morning it does this, he figures out somebody is broadcasting at these two times.
Yeah.
So they just need to go through the neighborhoods at those times to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, they caught him really quickly.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think they could have done a lot more with him being captured.
What do you mean?
Like they could have stretched that out a bit. I would have been okay with that. Like really sit in Ellie Cohen's shoes.
Like another episode?
I don't know about a whole episode, but maybe another 20 minutes of just like him in those shoes as they deliberate what's going through his mind. Does he think it's all going to be fine? Like, have you guys ever seen Hell on Wheels?
No, I don't believe so.
They have a hanging in that show that is one of the most hardcore hangings I've ever seen. And I'm not talking about gore. Like, you see how the way that they sort of show it first person, him walking up the gallows?
Yeah.
Okay, that show does that, but it takes you pretty much all the way. Like, they put the bag over her head, but it's the camera. And you hear her breath and, like, the awkward moments when she hasn't quite dropped yet and everyone's just waiting for it. Like, that is hardcore. And so I got to say, I was a little bit disappointed having seen that. And then to see them do this, because they seem to be going for it in this one. They really wanted you to feel it. But they pulled their punches. Like, they didn't want to show him dying, which I feel like if this wasn't a pro-Israel movie, I think they would have shown it a little more. But instead it's like, yeah, we're not going to show the hero getting hanged. Not really. We'll show you, like, we'll give you, like, the feeling of it. But
Well, didn't they show him, like, they showed the actual footage of him hanging there?
later. But they didn't show him drop in the show.
Right. They insinuated it.
Yeah, and so, yeah. I don't know, I just felt like I've seen that done better, too. So, I will say, like you guys said, Sacha Baron Cohen was fantastic. I felt like pretty much everyone around him was pretty mediocre, except for Maz, the young soldier guy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was good.
Yeah, I liked him as well because I think that it was very. I think he was realistic, and I liked how. I liked at the end when he got brought in alongside him. You know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the woman he was supposed to marry.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
And it's suggested that he cheated on his wife, right?
Oh yeah.
And on Wikipedia it says that he like participated in orgies and all that.
I thought they were going to kind of make something of that. Like, halfway through the series when the guy you're talking about, the young soldier, when he and him are like around those prostitutes they bring in for the general, and he's like, yeah, why won't you do it, when she like offers himself to him. I thought they were going to make more of a thing about that. Like,
Yeah, that was weird.
like him like kind of getting suspicious. I don't know. At one point I thought he was going to accuse him of being gay, and I didn't know whether or not that was like a problem in Syria. Like what was it illegal to be gay in Syria back then?
I mean, it is a problem because the guy says like you don't want them to think you're funny like that.
Right.
But that was like so long after he had already been there and like rejected the girl and been caught, and I don't know. Like there's some concepts here. Maybe they were trying to just keep it like really true, but I feel as if they took some liberties with the story, but didn't quite like see them through.
Mm. There was another thing I wanted to bring up. I wanted to ask you guys. I must have missed this. The part where was it his brother? I think caught him, and then like it just went nowhere.
Yeah.
What happened there? I must have missed that because
Well, his brother realized he was a Mossad agent, and just warned him not to. See, what were you guys thinking when everyone was telling him not to come back, or not to go back? Because I knew that he was going to go back and die. So.
well,
Yeah, I was thinking like, I knew he was gonna die or not. I knew he was gonna get caught. I didn't think he was gonna die, but when he got caught, I was wondering how they were exactly gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting.
What do you
I
mean
don't
how they
know,
were
like,
going to do it?
So like I wasn't sure how he was gonna get caught. I didn't know how far he was gonna go. You know, like I was like, is he gonna spend some time as defense minister, and that's how they're gonna catch him? Because like he's gonna leak things that only he would know. Or
well, did you know he was gonna get caught?
I suspected, because remember at the beginning of the show, it shows him in prison.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
So I was like, okay, he's clearly gonna get caught. But
yeah, and like I have mixed feelings when shows do that. They're basically saying, look how interesting this is. Now let's go back to the full story. It's like, I don't know about that method of storytelling, because maybe we should start with him like getting caught or already in the midst of whatever he's doing. Like, you want to go back to day one after you just showed, you're basically showing me the thing in the interrogation room because you want me to hold on for that.
Yes.
So, I mean, I get the tactic, but maybe then don't start the show at a place where you'll lose people.
Well, see, here's the thing. For me, Kia, I agree, but for me it was like altered expectations or subversion of expectations. Because when they start the show like that, I immediately assume he's going to live. Because I'm like, there's no way they'll do this. There's no way they're going to show him dying. But then they did. And for me, that elevated it even more. Because I was like, holy crap. And like that part at the end where they're like, Syria still refuses to return his body. Yeah. I was like, that kind of sucks, you know?
Them Syrians. Everett says they're nice guys. I don't know.
But remember too, like I also really like that moment where they're like checking to see if he's paid for the items walking out of the store, and he gets angry, and he gets angry rightfully, and it's like it's this.
I thought that scene was hilarious, to be honest.
Why?
It's just like I'm gonna say it. Sacha Baron Cohen may have been overacting a touch, and it was just kind of out of nowhere. It's like, oh, excuse me, sir, can I see your receipt? It's like, what? You talking to me, bro? It's like, okay, we get that you're a little unhinged, but you haven't done anything on this level the entire time. I took it
more as like he's thinking as he would as Kamal. No one talks to Kamal like that.
But Kamal doesn't even talk like that.
No, he doesn't, but no one ever challenges him like that. You know?
I guess, but it didn't jive with me.
I do kind of agree with you on that, Kia, especially since like if you've ever been shopping and have like a lot of stuff like that on a cart, it's like protocol for people to like check your receipt just in case you're not stealing. Especially like I think we've all seen
like a Karen.
Remember last time I was at Walmart and they asked me for my receipt and I flipped out. I'm like, how dare you?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we've all seen enough of those like freakouts on Reddit to know that like that's not the worst thing people do, but like they definitely do it. Like people like do the weirdest things in shopping centers. Like,
yeah, but I'm just saying for the character, he never acted like that as, a little bit as Camel or whatever his name was. He never like was like power. What is it? Is it power? He never went on a power trip. He never said like, listen, I call the shots here. Like, he never did anything like that. In fact, he was kind of being like ragdolled by most of the people he was with, and he was like doing favors for them constantly and whatever. So,
yeah, I see that, but I also see it as like they kind of showed it earlier. I think where they were like getting the bigger TV, and he was like complaining like, yeah, like like in my apartment, and he slips up like my apartment like. I have one that's bigger. We need one. It's not that expensive. Like, he's gotten used to that lifestyle.
Well, I get that where he comes home and he's like, what the fuck am I doing this for? Because I have a shitty TV. My wife doesn't have a phone. And I'm over there. Like, they're paying for all this crazy shit. I'm away from them all the time. And what am I gaining from this?
Yeah.
I get that frustration. That I could have seen him, like, maybe internalizing and just being, like, pissed off at home more. As opposed to, like, taking it out on the security guard, like, and then the wife, like, her reaction is like, "No, Ellie, don't, like, calm down, Ellie."
Where are you taking him? And then just nothing happens.
Yeah, that was another thing where it was just kind of like nothing. I found most of the acting to be okay. I still like the show, but and then there was like so many women involved. which is fine. Except I kind of lost track of who was who. Like there was the one that was banging the handler, but she was married and she got pregnant. I think that was her. And then there was the agent in Buenos Aires. Did she follow him after that?
No, she was.
She just
gone.
stayed in Buenos Aires. And then there was a third one, right? A third woman Mossad person somewhere in there.
I don't think so.
There was like the older woman. There was the agent, and then there was like the secretary woman who was trying to bang his handler. Yeah, I know those. The agent lady, I thought her voice sounded familiar, so I looked it up. She's actually really a prominent voice actress. She was like in a couple of the Halo games and stuff. So that was kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah, you have a weird thing about people and their voices.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why, but she has like a very distinct voice. And I remember because she voices Kat in Halo Reach, and I remember her voice is so unique. I'm like, that sounds really familiar. So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Nice to see she's getting work.
All right. Anything else to say about this one?
I had one more thing.
Okay.
I was going to ask you guys what your favorite scene was from the series. If you had to pick
Ooh,
one.
that's good.
Yeah, that's a hard question because there weren't that many great ones.
I knew Kia was gonna shit on the question. What a buzzkill.
I mean, I can go first because
Yeah,
I
go
definitely
ahead.
know mine. My favorite scene was definitely when they're doing the tour of the military installation, and they tell him like, "Here, you want to shoot one of the Israelis?" And like that level of tension throughout that entire scene until they're like, "Yeah, we're just kidding." I thought that was great because he's
Yeah, I
like
didn't-
looking out over the field.
I didn't like that because to me, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. They can't just shoot civilians because if they did, the civilians wouldn't be there. And then he's like, "Yeah, you want to start a war? What are you thinking?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that it doesn't make sense." Like,
I mean, I
one
liked
would
it
ever
because.
ask you.
I like that because that's like the level of how far will you go to keep your cover. Like he's a spy, and if he refuses and they were serious,
Right, but it's
they'd
contrived.
question him.
They would never let him go all the way on the gun if they didn't want him to shoot. What if he fucking shot? Think about that.
Also, I'm pretty sure civilians weren't like playing there.
Yeah,
The most
it doesn't
real-
make
like,
any sense.
They were definitely mortaring them, but like civilians weren't like chilling.
Yeah, on the border. And it's like kids like playing in the street, like playing baseball in the street.
I think they were farmers, right? Like there was like a tractor and stuff.
Yeah,
they
but
were
they're
working
like
in the fields.
in the when it like showed it like looked like they were playing like Ring Around the Rosie.
Yeah.
In like a
Yeah, there were like two girls skipping down the street
and it was
by
so
the tractor.
stupid. I have to agree with Kia. I still like the idea of the scene, but once like you really analyze it, you're like, because like they're like, it's like, and he's like, am I gonna shoot these kids? And they're like, shoot the kids. Oh, not really.
I mean, you guys have a point that it is a kind of a stupid concept, but I really do think that it's kind of cool, like that concept of how far will you go to keep your cover. Like, what are the things you have to do to make sure that it's
Well, yeah,
believable?
but they did that. Like when he was having sex with women and, I don't know, shaking hands with people, taking the defensive ministry job.
But like,
Yeah,
I don't
so
think
for me-
I don't think that's necessarily on the same level as. Sorry to interrupt you, Emerson. I just don't think that's on the same level as like killing someone. Like I don't think he expected to actually have to kill anyone. So when he's faced with that, even if it was a joke, like
Yeah,
all
but
the
it's a
thoughts like going through his head.
contrived. It's a contrived scenario. You get what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying.
It doesn't make any sense. I would 100% assume that the gun wasn't loaded because they would never ask someone to shoot like that. You would like people if they were actually shooting Israelis outside of that bunker, the Israelis would never be there. So none of it added up from like the first word. It didn't make any sense the whole time.
I mean, it kind of sort of made sense to me. Like weren't the bunkers like hidden? Like no one knew where they were. They were underground.
Yeah, but it was the Golan Heights, which are like very contested ground, and like this is like where the clashes between the military was happening very regularly. So like civilians, if there were civilians there, they'd be like male contractors who are like doing something that like has to be done, like establishing water pipes. They're not going to be like just chilling. It wasn't like a vacation spot, because pretty much since 49, Israel and Syria had been like lobbing mortars at each other and occasionally launching attacks.
Right. Okay.
So, but my favorite scene was probably when the trees are being set up above the bunkers, the eucalyptus trees, because there was a moment for me where I was like, wait a minute, I've read about this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I like seeing something I've read about put on film.
I thought
Yeah.
that was cool too when I realized what he was doing with those trees.
Yeah, I enjoy that too, especially like when they were talking about it earlier. Like, yeah, he needs a money transfer for eucalyptus trees. What does that mean? And then when you actually see it get put into action, it all comes together. Like, oh, that's a really ingenious move that no one probably would have thought of.
My favorite scene might have been the orgy.
Why?
No, but when it's sort of when they suggest that he is like engaging in those parties as well, that was kind of like the first sign that he had given up on staying true to himself, you know?
Was that the scene like at the same time the coup was going on, or they're like it's like intercut, where people are like getting
They
murdered?
shot the guy, yeah, or I forgot, they killed him or something.
They like arrested the general outside that party.
Yeah, because they did set up that he loved his wife, and so when he's at the party and you know he's like clearly one of them, I'm like, all right, so he's conceded that he has to go this far. That stupid shooting people thing, like that, I didn't believe that for 1 second. But when he cheated on his wife, or you know did something, engaged, was around those people, did a completely different lifestyle, I'm like, he's moved on from who he was at this point. So I guess maybe that's the favorite scene. I definitely thought him getting hanged would have been one of the best scenes, but it just wasn't good enough. Him getting caught was not a bad scene. You definitely felt like, yeah, but you know, a lot of the fighting in this is horribly telegraphed.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's not an action.
But like when they hit him, when they capture him and they like
It's
hit
so
him with
bad.
the gun, it's terrible. It's genuinely terrible. Everybody that gets hit in this movie or show is just, they just keel over. It's so funny.
That was another scene that I also enjoyed. Maybe not as much as the other gun scene, but when he wakes up and the young soldier's aiming the gun at him, like, who are you? Before he realizes it's like he's messing with him. Like that.
Yeah.
That was a good suspenseful moment.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, anything else?
I got nothing else.
That's all I wanted to say about it.
Do you have a fight of the week?
I do, actually.
Okay.
Everett is Ellie Cohen.
Oh, jeez.
Kia is the head of Syrian security.
Okay.
Kia, you have a suspicion that there is a spy. Kamal has made his way around with his elegant figure. How would you track him down, Kia? You're
His elegant
suspicious.
figure.
You're suspicious, but how would you track him down? We're in Syria. The coup has happened. Let's say you're not going to use the Soviet method. You know about the TVs, you know about information being leaked, but you're not going to use the Soviets to go around.
I know about the TVs.
Like, you know that at certain times of day, TVs are being interrupted and information's getting leaked. So you know that there's someone within a couple block radius that is leaking information.
So he doesn't suspect that it's me doing it.
He is suspicious of you, but he's suspicious of everyone. I'm asking what Kia would do to catch you, Everett.
Okay, I want to hear this.
Okay, how did they narrow down his location?
They were using the Soviet trackers to identify when he was sending the signals.
So is there another way to do that?
Well, see, what I'm saying here is, like, how would you, like, I'm saying as before, you're already suspicious of Everett. How would you confirm it without using those? Because that's too easy. It's like, well, I just do the same thing and then I catch him. But I'm more interested
the
in,
tricky
like,
thing is, how do I narrow it down to Everett?
well, because okay, there's only a few people at a certain level who are privileged to this type of information. Okay? Everett's one
Okay,
of them.
so I guess
He's
you would
also the
leak.
newest guy.
You would leak
What I'm
different
most
information to
interested in
everybody.
is like, do you like follow him home? How do you get him to admit it? Do you fuck with him? What
Well,
do you do?
that's the part. Is like, how do I know it's? Like,
So let's
how do I
say
know
okay,
it's him?
let's say you've been given an anonymous tip that it is Kamal, it's Everett. But
Okay.
you don't know if you can trust this tip, but you have been given an anonymous tip.
Okay. That he's a spy,
Yeah.
an Israeli spy.
Yeah.
But it's Everett.
Yes, it's Everett, and you're you.
Oh God,
I mean, if it's Everett, honestly, I go right up to him and I say, "Hey, so how's Israel lately?" And he'll be like, "Huh? Huh? Huh? Huh?" And and I'll be like, "Yeah, you're not like a spy or anything, are you?" And be like, because one thing I know about Everett is that you could like put the point of the conversation directly in his face, and it might go over his head. So, as evidenced by the subreddit shenanigans earlier this week,
yeah.
did you ever realize that was me?
Yeah, I realized it was you. That was just a brain fart. So, yeah.
Kia's like, is this a Mysterio level?
I spent like 5 minutes looking at that picture. I'm like, what the fuck does he want me to look at? And then I realized it was you. I'm like, oh God, I'm an idiot.
So what happened was Everett, whenever we're on Xbox and we were gonna play a game, everybody else always just joins the person. Everett always asks for an invite for some weird reason. He can never just join on his own. It's to the point where it's like kind of an annoying pain in the ass at this point. And so Everett posts a meme on Reddit. Some guy asks him for the meme template, and Everett obviously goes, "Yeah, private message me and then I'll send it to you," as opposed to just sending it to the guy on his own for some reason. So I commented saying, "Oh, that's weird. Like, why did you demand that he message you first instead of just messaging him yourself?" It's almost like, or this seems like the kind of person that would do this in an Xbox party, like as a joke, knowing that Everett would immediately see that it's me saying it. And yeah, Everett didn't catch on. And then I like sent him a screenshot because he didn't like react to it at all. And I asked him, "Hey, Everett, are you gonna address this?" Like pretending like it wasn't me, like that was another layer to the joke. But Everett really still didn't get that. And then as the conversation kept going, I honestly couldn't tell if he was tricking me or if he really couldn't understand that it's me. And at some point I asked Emerson, I'm like, "Is this a Mysterio level illusion or is this real?" And Emerson's like, "It's real." So yeah,
that's not one of my prouder moments.
So yeah, I'd pretty much go up to you and just like, you know, because we're all friendly and you're trying to schmooze everybody, and I'd have a drink with you at the bar, and then I'd be like, "So, are you a spy?" Everett would immediately break eye contact and start looking around and be like, "No," and like fiddling with his pockets and be like, "You're a spy, aren't you?" And be like, "No." And I'll be like, "You're a fucking spy." I'll be like, "Whoa, why do you say that?" And then, worst comes to worst, I'll just torture him for a night. And if it turns out he's really not a spy, then, like if someone else transmits that night, I guess I'll just let him go. But here's the thing. If he is a spy and I let him go, he's not going to leave, He's going to stay because he has to. So I could still mess with him. Yeah, so if it was Everett, I would definitely just fluster the shit out of him. I would just lie. I'd be like, "Everett, there's like 3 people outside saying you're a spy right now."
You'd be like, "No, fucking not." No,
yeah, like, which 3 people? And I was like, "There's the guy with the hat, and there was the guy with the sunglasses, and then there was the lady that was with him. They're all saying that they heard you make a call." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't make a call." I'm like, "Then why are people saying that?" He's like, "I don't know. I never made a fucking call." I'm like, "Did you send any messages?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" Because he did send messages. Yeah, it would be funny.
That'd be so hilarious. And then of course you'd behead him on national television, right?
I mean,
Yeah, I guess a follow-up question would be, what would be your method of execution?
I don't know if the cartels were already doing this, but I've seen the chainsaw to the head thing.
Oh God.
Have you guys seen that video?
Yeah, it's
No.
fucked up.
It's one of the worst videos I've ever seen.
Like
I
an
can get
ISIS
through the whole
video or
thing.
something?
I'd like to point that out.
I don't think I
it's a
watched the whole
cartel
thing
video.
either. It's a cartel video,
What,
yeah.
they chainsaw some guy in the
Yeah,
face?
don't look it up, Everett.
No.
It's not.
I'm not gonna
No.
look it up.
No, they chainsawed his head off.
Oh God.
And it's not even the decapitation. It's the way the guy braces for the chainsaw. And it's not funny. But it's
I know,
it's
but
truly
you're laughing.
awful.
It's contagious.
Yeah, it's truly
I
awful.
don't know shit like that. Kind of like I can't handle like heavy shit like that. Like I still cringe at that scene in American Sniper where the guy like drills the little kid in the head. You don't even see it, but like shit like that. I don't know. Like I can't really handle that very well.
Was that at Hurricane Katrina?
What?
Chris Kyle claimed that he was shooting looters
The
on
looters,
Hurricane
yeah.
Katrina. Yeah.
Just like lying, and then like they proved he was not in Louisiana, and he's like, "No, I did it."
I saw a guy at my my favorite Mexican burrito place. He was wearing a Chris Kyle shirt with the Punisher logo on it.
Yeah, it's so like cringy.
Interesting. But yeah, so about that Mexican guy. So like imagine you're sitting there in a dirt field against a brick wall, and they put the cameras in front of you, and the Mexican guys are like saying, "Yeah, this is what happens," and then they start revving a fucking chainsaw, and they hold your head up, and then they just fucking do it. The dude's face, I'll never forget. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. All right. Roundup. I watched Bill Burr, Paper Tiger. Anyone else watch it?
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Comedy special. Yeah, Emerson, you told me like his was arguably more controversial than
I think it was.
Dave Chappelle.
I think it was. Now you made the good point where you're like, well, Dave Chappelle said like certain words, or like he did like accents that like I think if Bill
Yeah.
Burr had done that, it would have been like game over.
Yeah.
But Dave Chappelle got away with it for obvious reasons. But Bill Burr, he just went hard. He went pretty hard. It was an interesting special where the first half is very much like him attacking PC culture and cancel culture and outrage culture, and then he like kind of transitions into like just talking about his life, like the story about his dog and his daughter and his wife.
The one joke I really liked that was improvised is when he says, like, I forget what the joke was, but he's talking to the guy, and then that one, it was about like rape or whatever, and the guy in the audience yells, ask for consent.
Ask for consent.
And I don't really remember the context of it, but he literally goes, do you guys see how hard it is to be a comedian? Like what I just said versus how this jackass heard it. And like, you know, because this guy completely took it the wrong way, turned it into like Bill Burr being a predator or something. And it's a joke, and he's not even saying, like, the joke wasn't even that he was raping anybody. It was like, I forget what, but it had nothing to do with what he was saying.
He was talking about like, what if you meet someone who likes it rough?
Oh, yeah, right. And so, like, that's clearly the joke. The joke is that it's like she kind of wants you to rape her, but you're like, I don't know. And like, he's done bits like that before. And this guy goes, yeah, ask for consent. Like what are you saying?
Yeah, it's like he clearly did. And then I love how he counterattacks. He's like, I don't know how you thought that. And then he makes that joke where he's like, can you imagine if someone was like that? They're like, well, for the first time ever, I think I'm going to ask for consent. Like, they're saying this thing. It seems really logical. Like, he destroys the guy's point.
Yeah.
Because he's like, nobody who does not ask for consent is going to hear someone saying ask for consent and be like, hey, I should do that. Like, nobody.
He's so good with hecklers. You know, a lot of his specials have him like fighting with the audience.
Yeah, because he's great at it.
One of his
Just takes
earlier
him down.
ones, he was talking about hitting women, and one of the ladies shouted out something that made no sense, and he ripped her. He basically
I
stopped
remember
the show.
I've seen this on YouTube.
Yeah.
He goes like, listen to him. I'm talking about hitting women, sweetheart. Like
Yeah. Yeah, but like he points out that she decides that whatever he's saying is directly to her, and then she's gonna speak up and say something, and then she shouts something that doesn't make any sense. Like he quotes her, whatever she said made no sense at all, and then he just stops and he's like, "We're talking about hitting women, sweetheart." Yeah, he's one of the best.
oh, for sure.
Another thing I watched on a completely different note is I went back and rewatched the HBO miniseries of John Adams
Okay.
with Paul Giamatti.
Yes,
so
I've heard
good.
it's amazing.
It's so good. I remember thinking it was good when I watched it, but I was young, and like just going back now and having more context about that whole time period. Like especially the episode where he goes to France is like probably the best of the series. But you get to see his whole life. George Washington. I'm surprised. You know how little there is about George Washington in terms of like movies?
Very little.
There are documentaries, but there's almost nothing about his life in like a live action film. And this is probably the best version of it. The guy who plays Stannis Baratheon, he's Thomas Jefferson. The guy who plays Micro is John Quincy Adams. Laura Linney is Abigail. I'm trying to think of who else I recognize. Tom Wilkinson is Benjamin Franklin. There's like a great scene where he meets King George. I think it's great. You don't get to see a lot of the Revolutionary War because he's mostly doing political stuff, and I think he has to go. He's actually in France or maybe Holland when the war is over.
He's trying to convince, he's trying to gain more French support, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great show. I think it's 6 episodes, maybe a little bit more.
I'll check it out.
It's a solid, viewing.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
For trailers, Rick and Morty season 4. What I watched, I can't even tell if it's a trailer. It's like a clip.
Wait, they came out with a trailer?
It was just today, so I looked up whatever the notification was, and it doesn't feel like a trailer at all.
Well, so they're into so I like Rick and Morty, I do, but they're very deep into the idea of like counterculture. So I'm assuming it was just some weird nonsense that didn't make sense.
It's a teaser trailer.
I'm pulling it up right now. 1 second. I'm gonna mute myself.
So yeah. Anyway, are there any other trailers?
I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't really seen anything.
I don't think so. It's actually a pretty slim news week. I'm surprised. We talked a lot about The Spy. But,
I had 2 things that I watched that I'll bring up.
all right, go ahead. What?
So I had some downtime this week. I rewatched 300.
All right.
That's one of 2. I love 300. Honestly,
Great movie.
it's so artistically well shot. Like it looks so great even now.
Yeah, it's a shame it's not in 4K.
Yeah, honestly, if they ever did a
This is a
reviewing
weird trailer. I don't know what to say.
if they ever did a reviewing of 300 in theaters, I would definitely go see it.
I absolutely would.
I would see that movie in IMAX or whatever the hell. Cause
My dad was so pissed.
Yeah, because they demonized the Persians, right?
He's like, Xerxes was not naked.
That's funny.
He's like, Persians did not own slaves. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Then it turns out he was right. And like they didn't own slaves and the Greeks fucking owned slaves. And I'm like, all right, that's a little bit of a bitch move there.
But anyway, that movie's great. And then the other thing I watched, I haven't watched this in a while, but I started rewatching Sense8 on Netflix. Did
that get canceled?
You know what? I have no idea, but I know they have 2 seasons out there. And I had watched the first one a long time ago, almost 2 years ago, and I thought it was really great at the time. But rewatching it, it's kind of weird. It's definitely for a certain audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I've never watched it, but I've watched the trailers, and it always was weird as hell. It's like a bunch of people who are linked or something.
Well, yeah,
it reminds me of Heroes.
the concept of it I thought was really cool in sci-fi, like the fact that 8 people scattered around the world all share like a psychic link and have access to each other's like knowledge and skills and stuff like that, and can use that in their day-to-day lives. But then when you watch it and you realize like how they cater like to certain people and how it's like made and like a bunch of weird things.
Expand upon that, Everett. How they cater to who?
Well, okay, there's a first of all, I know you wouldn't like it because there's a lot of sex scenes in it. But I think this was starting to come out. I think this came out a little bit after the Wachowskis did their like sex change. So the whole show is filled with a lot of stuff like having to do with transsexualism. And I mean, I'm not against transsexualism, but they shove it down your throat a little too much. Like, does that make sense? Like, they put it in places where it doesn't necessarily fit in the lines of the show. Like, they bring it up at the weirdest times. Like, I think, like, one of the episodes I got through, they were, like, doing a prison break, and it came up, like, 6 times. And I'm like, well, if you're going to use it, then use it, like, that narratively makes sense. Don't just put it there for the sake of putting it there. Am I making sense? Like... I don't know, like, I definitely thought the show was a lot better when I first watched it, but now it's, I don't know, it's kind of strange.
Okay. Oh, you're a gem. All right, here's some news.
Thank you.
Here's some news. Haley Steinfeld has been offered a leading role in Hawkeye as Kate Bishop.
I heard about this.
Oh.
These are rumors, not official. I'm okay with that. She's from around our area.
Really?
Well,
Yeah,
yes, I like her, though.
I forget how old she is. Is she my age now, or is she younger? She must be a little younger, I think.
Steinfeld. Yeah, I could see that. It's interesting.
I think it's cool. I don't understand, like, is her daughter... What about his daughter?
Who knows?
She's
Yeah.
6 years younger than me.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. Even with her being cast, are you, like, interested?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
I find myself not that interested.
Well, it's the idea... This is going to be the first truly, like, I'm going to train my replacement in the MCU. So it's an interesting thing because they have to sell us on this character. Like Sam Wilson, he sort of showed up as sidekick and then hung around long enough to get a promotion. But here, they're basically like, okay, here comes new Hawkeye. And then old Hawkeye, I assume, is going to like her and like want to train her. And they're going to have to sell us on her. So that part I'm a little apprehensive about, because if that part doesn't work, if we're just like, we don't really like you, kind of like Captain Marvel, where it, like, personality-wise, she didn't really jive, you know?
Yeah.
And so it could be like, all right, now this is just a formality, and they're just trying to sell us on this crap now. Because they can't keep paying Jeremy Renner, and he can't keep doing it, so it's just like the big marketing machine. Here's a new show to showcase the new Hawkeye. And, you know, most of the fan base will just accept it, and the other half will be like, well, what about the actual storytelling? So I hope that there's actual storytelling is what I'm trying to say, as opposed to just, because Captain Marvel was basically just an advertisement for Captain Marvel.
Yeah, that's completely true.
And even still, she hasn't really arrived because she hasn't done anything of like I want to say of
significant challenge either.
She hasn't
Like, you
faced
can
a
say,
challenge.
like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
You could say like, oh well, she fought Jan Rog and she like fought, like, saved it, but it's like she's like, there was never any doubt in any of that. Even against Thanos, it's like she kind of showed up and like contributed. But
we
I
don't really know.
Yeah,
we don't really know her
challenged.
personality, right?
Yeah,
we don't know who she is aside from, like, she's kind of spunky, and like you said, she doesn't really have a counter. So, yeah, like, anyway, but I hope that this Hawkeye, like, because she's a good actress, I'm hoping that she's got like some real meat to work with in this role. Anyway, all right, Suicide Squad cast has been fully revealed.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh my god.
When I
David
saw this image,
Dastmalchian.
I said no.
Do you guys know who this is? David Dastmalchian.
No.
He is the Russian guy in Ant-Man. The Baba Yaga guy.
Oh, that
He was
guy?
also in The Dark
Okay.
Knight. Yeah.
Wasn't he also in Justice League? Or was that a different guy?
I don't know.
I think he played didn't he play KG Beast?
No, that's not him.
Alright, never mind.
John Cena is in it.
Oh my
As
God.
what? What
don't
could
know.
John Cena possibly play?
I don't know. There's Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang.
I'm okay with that. I liked him.
Joaquin Cosio, which I don't know who that is. Nathan Fillion.
It's an interesting casting.
Joel Kinnaman, probably as Rick Flag. Mei Ling Gwyn, I don't know how to spell it. I don't know. Flula Borg, I don't know who that is. Sean Gunn, who apparently like just piggybacks off everything his brother does. Juan Diego Boto, Storm Reed, Pete Davidson. Okay, most of these people shouldn't be on the poster, honestly.
Yeah, I don't. Who does Pete Davidson play? I hate him. Like,
I don't know. I don't even know who that is. But who?
That's
who does? What?
the guy from Saturday Night Live. He
Oh.
was famous a while back because he made fun of a congressman who was like a war vet who lost an arm and a leg and an eye.
plus, didn't he he was like gonna get married to someone for like 3 days, and then like
Ariana
who was
Grande.
it? Ariana Grande, yeah, and then like fizzled out.
Cool. Taika
He's
Waititi.
annoying.
Who's Taika
Yeah.
Waititi playing?
I have no clue.
Alice Braga, I don't know. Steve Agee, I don't know. Tanashi Kajisi, I don't know. Daniela Meliquar, Peter Capaldi, Julio Ruiz, Jennifer Holland, Viola Davis. That's good.
Peter Capaldi might be interesting. I wonder who he's gonna play.
I don't know who that is.
He plays. He's been the most recent Doctor on Doctor Who.
No. Idris Elba, who's apparently replacing Will Smith as
Okay.
Deadshot. I mean, that was the rumor. We don't know for sure.
Wasn't there like some rumor that he was like Orange Tiger or whatever?
Yeah, we don't know. Bronze Tiger. Idris Elba, we said it. Margot Robbie. Who
I
cares?
wonder who she's playing.
Yeah, and Michael Rooker, who also apparently is just stuck with James Gunn.
I'm surprised Dave Bautista's not in this movie.
Yeah, seriously. So, wasn't that a rumor at one point? What's his name? James Gunn says, "Don't get too attached," which I'm fine with.
great.
At least someone's gonna die in the Suicide
Yeah,
Squad.
except what the problem is, like, look at the amount of names there. How much you want to bet it's like we random kill like some no name?
All the no names. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
And the
happened to
other thing
Killer
is, like-
Croc?
The other thing is like, remember that they actually killed a few of them in the original Suicide Squad. It just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Remember when they killed that guy? That's
Slipknot just died immediately.
yes.
Yeah.
He didn't even get an intro sequence. And they just
Yeah,
killed
they
him like
didn't waste
25 minutes
time.
into the movie.
He flies away. His body just thump. And then the El Diablo guy's like, "This is my family." And,
Yeah. For no, like, dude, it's been 4 hours.
and no one likes you either. It's
Yeah. All the Mexican people loved him though.
I don't know. Emerson, you've seen the Justice League cartoon. Do you remember like all the B-list and C-list villains they had in there?
Yeah.
Like in all the B-list, C-list villains they've had. There's like a whole bunch of people they could throw into Suicide Squad that haven't been used yet.
there's too many.
Also, I make this joke every time Idris Elba gets brought up, but I made this to you earlier. Remember, like he like complained about being in Thor, saying he wants to take more serious roles, and yet he does this stuff like this. Like I don't understand it.
He's clearly given up on the whole like more serious role thing because he went from Hobbs and Shaw to this.
Oh man,
So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I still would have loved to see him as Bond.
Maybe
That
he
would have
has
been a good
like
casting.
money issues. So there's some issues going on with Suicide Squad. James Gunn has come under fire from many fans on social media after liking a tweet in which Suicide Squad is described as a piece of shit and Ayer's work is dismissed as not being as good as Gunn's. Chances are he only liked it because the person was defending the casting of Peter Davidson, but honestly, this isn't a great look.
I don't give a crap.
No, and then David Ehrlich said, I was trying to express frustration with the endless franchise hype parade that continues unabated regardless of previous results, whatever they are, often at the expense of focusing on films that need the attention. Apologize that it came off as a more personal attack. I don't know if he said the initial thing, but anyway. Then David Ayer, who did the first Suicide Squad movie, he said, thank you for this. The film industry is exactly that, an industry. It keeps growing and moving forward. Yet I know James Gunn will make something amazing. My frustration comes from being hammered for something that was not my original vision. And the only reason I bring that up is because wasn't he defending and saying that it was his version of the movie for a while?
At one point, he definitely was. He was like, this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So, other news, Thor Love and Thunder. Someone asked Taika Waititi who's the lead in the movie. And he says, it's Chris. It's a Thor film. He is Thor. It's a Thor film. She's in it.
I mean, that's better than what I thought, where it's like all her film.
Yeah, but to me, it seems like he's trying to be playful with his words. It's Chris. It's a Thor film. He is Thor. It's a Thor film. She's in it. But she's Thor, too. So, I don't know that's what he's doing, but that's how I took it. And then everyone's like, oh, see, it is Chris Hemsworth in the lead. I'm like, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it might start with him, but it's not going to be about him. They're not going to be fighting over him. So
they kill off Thor in like the first 10 minutes.
No, I don't think that'll happen. Well, actually, you never know with Taika. All right, gaming. I played Full Spectrum Warrior. That game is so fun. I played it almost all night Saturday night, and I didn't even realize it was 4 a.m. And after I beat it,
Kia.
And I was like, whoa! I thought it was gonna be like 1 a.m. It's 4 a.m. It's just a good game. So I'm playing the sequel on Steam right now. I'm gonna start it soon. And then I went back and I played Assassin's Creed 3.
I saw you playing that.
Yeah, because it's in the Revolutionary War period. Well, it's kind of an interesting story pacing because it starts. First of all, I hate anything that's not in the Revolutionary time period. Like anything that's in the Animus with Desmond can go get fucked. I hate that shit more than anything. It's like the most tedious. I skip every cutscene. It's the worst part of the game. I just want to play in the time period. I don't even have to be an assassin. But anyway, then you start out like in 1750. You're a British guy, assassin, coming on a boat across the Atlantic. So there's a bunch of missions there. Then when you get there, you do a bunch of missions, like trying to kill Edward Braddock, who's a British soldier. So you do that. Then the guy meets a Native American woman, and then it jumps forward 20 years, and like the son is the main character. But I'm already like on chapter 4 of the game, so now I'm actually like at the revolutionary part, which is what I want. So
yeah, I know they made a remastered version of that game, and I'm tempted to buy it. Is it worth it? Do you think to buy it?
No, I only bought it because I wanted to see the revolutionary time period. If you're not into that, I think the gameplay is incredibly tedious. I think the story's pretty bland so far.
You ever hear that stupid fact that people keep bringing up that game's like technically accurate? Like everyone that dies in that game technically is an accurate death to history.
Isn't that how the games normally are, though?
No, but I think in this term, it's famous figures and citizens, like normal people on the street. Like if they die, apparently, like that's how it happened.
What? You're talking about NPCs?
Yeah, like normal citizens
real
walking
people?
around town. Not like real people, but there was like a statistic when the game came out of people saying like, this game's really cool, it's historically accurate. When people question that, they're like, if you go back technically and you look at all the people that die in this game, both main figures, like heavy names that pull clout, and then vague random citizens, people that lived in that time period, technically like death by drowning or death by assassination or death by murder, like that kind of stuff like actually happened to people like that. So they equate it with, that's how they actually died. I don't know. It's too complicated,
Okay.
but I don't know. Whatever.
I watched a young George Washington get beat up by a Native American woman, so that was cool.
Get wrecked.
And then the last thing is Pokemon Go Gen 5 has launched today. So
Really,
they're out there.
that's cool.
Yeah, it is. Oshawott one of my favorite Pokemon, so I'm cool with that.
It's interesting, I suppose. Didn't Ash just win the tournament or something?
Yeah. So Ash, 20 years into his career, finally won a Pokemon League championship as a 10-year-old.
The Fount of Immortality. He found it.
Yeah. I mean, that anime is great. I think the first season was great, and then as they dragged it out and kept him young and didn't purposely stalled his progress, I think that at that point it was just to sell cards and toys. But
You ever hear that really shitty theory, the purgatory theory? I think
Yeah.
that's so hilarious.
yeah,
I don't know. I like that for some strange reason. I think it adds more scope for some. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
yeah. All right, so I guess you're just gonna leave the audience hanging then.
Well, you know what the. Okay. So, for those of you who don't know, there's I'd say common theory of. I think it was the first Pokemon movie where Ash gets turned to
Not
stone.
common.
Okay. Slightly uncommon, but it's out there. I think it was the first Pokemon movie where Ash gets turned to stone. I think it was by Mewtwo, and technically died. And so the theory is that everything from then on, Ash never grows up, and they keep coming out with new Pokemon, so he can never collect them all. And the theory is that he really died and he's in purgatory, and will never ever become a Pokemon master for all eternity. And it's dark, and I love it.
I heard the theory that in the first episode he falls off his bike and goes into a coma,
What?
and the whole thing is a dream. And Pikachu's shocks are them trying to wake him up with a defibrillator.
Really? Jeez, I've never heard that one.
That's the version I heard. I never heard about Mewtwo killing him.
Well, okay. Was it the first movie where he gets turned to stone or something? Was that it?
I don't know, Everett. I'll be honest with you.
Whatever. I think it happened in the first movie, but that's the version that I heard. That everything from then on was just him in purgatory.
And with
Nice.
that, we will return next week with Ad Astra.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Yeah, be excited to be disappointed.
Wow. Wait, I thought you were excited for it.
I am, but I've seen too many movies to get excited like that.
Fair enough. Well, see you
It's a
next
weird
week then.
sci-fi film. Chances are it's gonna have some bullshit ass ending.
Oh, that's true. God damn it.
Statistically. But we'll see. Hey, sometimes I
gonna
get
be
surprised.
I'm
Bro,
still
what if
holding
it's-
out hope.
What if it's in the same universe as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? It ends with him waking up after the acid trip.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. See you guys next time.
All
See ya.
right, see you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Iron Coop Fights Movies. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, review our podcast on iTunes so that we can spread the show around. To contact the show, you can reach us at theironcoob@gmail.com and on Instagram at theironcoob. Join us for another edition of the Iron Coop Fights Movies.